There's a feeling that I get when I'm with you. I need you. That thing you do. Can I just say it cracks me up so much how prominently featured Tom Hanks is on the poster and the promotional art and everything. Here's all these people that the film is actually about, but like, look, Tom Hanks! It's kind of like when the first thing you hear about a film in a trailer is that it's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of like, we promise this film is good. At the time that I'm recording this, it is October 4th, 2021, which means it is the 25th anniversary of one of the greatest films of our time. Dare I say, one of the greatest films of all time, which is That Thing You Do, written and directed by Tom Hanks, and also starring Tom Hanks and a bunch of other people. And I know for a fact that it's the 25th anniversary because this film was released in the same year that I was born. A lot of important things happened in 1996, I'm not gonna lie. So if you couldn't tell by now, I love this film. And both of my parents actually love this film as well. So we bond over it all the time, and it has just become a way of life in our household. Hardly a day goes by where we do not quote this film in some way, shape, or form. I am not kidding you. And let me tell you, that is not a hard feat, because this is one of the most quotable films on the planet. Some of the greatest hits of my family include, but are not limited to.
You're talking to Spartacus here.
You're talking gibberish.
You are my biggest fan.
A man in a really nice camper wants to put our song on the radio.
Let it burn. Let her burn. Let her burn all night.
Oh, you want good, Jay? Good, Jay.
It's nice suits, nice, because you are nice boys.
Oh, that's what I do.
Table 19, your pizza's ready.
And not necessarily quoted, but let it be known that anytime my dad hears Stan Getz on one of his satellite jazz channels, he has to take a picture of the display on the radio and send it to me.
Anything he did on the Verve label.
I watch this film, or I think about this film, and instantly I feel like I'm home. You know? This got gushy quicker than I meant it to. Okay. There was a significant period in my life where I kind of rolled my eyes at this film, mostly when I was a child, because I felt like my parents watched this film so many times and I did not get it. Granted, I was probably a little too young to get it. I often hate stuff before I like it. It's a personal failing of mine, I understand. But at some point, I actually just sat down and properly watched the film and gave it a chance, and then instantly I sold my soul. Like, I realized why my parents were as crazy about this film as they was. As they were. Excuse me. So besides it being a bonding experience with my family and a fount of palatable dialogue, why exactly do I love this film? Well, for context, let me break down the plot for you super fast, because I feel like people fall into one of two categories with That Thing You Do. Either they love it or they have never seen it before. So our story begins in Erie, Pennsylvania in 1964, and we meet Guy Patterson, a drummer who is working in his parents' appliance store. His friends, who happen to be in a band, end up needing a replacement drummer for a talent show that they're playing at. And at the talent show, Guy makes a split decision to speed up the tempo of the song that they're playing from a moody ballad to a proper dancey rock and roll song. And because of that, the song instantly becomes popular around town. It gets the band a paying gig, which in turn gets them an agent, which in turn gets their song on the radio, which is just the most joyous scene that you can capture on film. It is pure, just unadulterated serotonin and joy. After it gets on the radio, they are introduced to Tom Hanks's character, Mr. White, who is a music agent from Hollywood, and he signs them and they go on tour, and the song hits top 10 in the Billboard, and then they go out to California to play the song on live TV.
The Hollywood Television Showcase.
And at this point, the band is kind of falling apart because The bass player has gone AWOL, ironically because he joined the Marines. Lenny, the guitar player, is being seduced by a former Playboy bunny.
I'm so happy!
And the TV producers end up spreading a lie that main lyricist Jimmy is engaged to his girlfriend Faye, which he is not, and he blows up in everyone's face and kind of starts to really show his true colors. Rather, everyone else starts to see Jimmy's true colors because I think he's been showing them for a while at this point. And then the band is pretty much broken up. But all hope is not lost because thanks to not one, but two fateful encounters with Guy's music idol, jazz pianist Del Paxton, he decides to stay in California and pursue a music career, and he ends up falling in love with and eventually marrying Faye. And then the film ends with these beautiful faux "Where Are They Now" cards telling like what happened to each member of the band after they broke up. And actually, this whole film has a very fake biopic vibe, and that's for a multitude of reasons, and I'll try to touch on those later. This film was Tom Hanks' passion project in so many ways. It was the first film he ever wrote. It was the first film he ever directed. He co-starred in it, obviously. His wife is in the film. His children are in the film. He wrote some of the songs for the film. And one of the co-writers for the music, one of the men who worked on the hit song itself, was Adam Schlesinger of Fountains of Wayne, of Stacy's Mom fame. Here's a question you may be asking. How do you make a film about a one-hit wonder song and don't absolutely drive the audience crazy with the song? Well, first of all, as I said, you get Adam Schlesinger to help you write it so that it's an absolute earworm and no one ever gets tired of it. But secondly, and here's the secret thing, you only play the song in full twice. At the beginning, when they first perform it at the talent show, and then at the end, when they perform it at the showcase. Every other time we hear it in the film, it's just a snippet. And while we're on the subject of music, for that matter, need I remind you that this film is set in the 60s. For a 2-hour film, they managed to capture so many different genres of music from that time period. Obviously, we have the teen sensation rock and roll going on, but we have jazz, we have sad folk girls, we have crooners, we have a Supremes-esque girl group, we have doo-wop, we have surf rock, the list goes on.
We're not the Wonders right now, we're Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters.
And here's another cool music fact for you. The actors were not specifically selected because they could play instruments and or sing. The actors were selected because of the characters that they wanted, and then they taught them how to play the instruments. And I have nothing against musicians who are also actors. They're great. I love them. But there's something about that fact that just warms my heart. You just know that they got exactly who they wanted, that like they didn't have to settle because somebody didn't have the musical skill that they needed. And what cracks me up though is that they kind of just taught them enough to make it work for the film, because I remember Jonathan Sheck in like some behind the scenes thing was talking about one of the performances that they filmed and how whenever the camera wasn't on him, he was just staring down at his guitar and like trying to make sure that his hands were doing what they needed to do. And speaking of interviews, and also going back to the "this film is so quotable" thing, I remember hearing Tom Hanks in some interview, I forget where, but he was talking about the process of editing the film and how they were kind of struggling to get it to an acceptable runtime. And like on one hand, yeah, I get it because I've seen the director's cut and I know that a lot had to be left out for the theatrical release. But also I'm like, I don't believe you, because the way that this film is cut together is so crisp and so satisfying. I'm going to get artsy-fartsy here for a second, but the cadence of this film, the relation of one scene to the next, and the, oh, this is a high-energy scene, oh, now we're slowing down and we're going back up. It is just the absolute perfect tempo and cadence, and it makes everything just so satisfying. And the cuts to everything and all of the good lines and what they choose to focus on at any point in the film, it all just works together in harmony so well. According to Tom Hanks, it didn't really feel like it at the time, but as a plebe who just saw the theatrical version when everything was said and done, it just how could you think it could be better than this? So yes, I have seen the director's cut because I own the DVD with the director's cut on it. I'm conflicted. While I do think it is worth watching if you are a fan, because there was, I don't want to say quite a bit that they cut.
And I know that a lot had to be left out.
I will say it adds to the film knowing what they cut. Like, it's definitely interesting to see that extra stuff, but I could never in good conscience say that the director's cut is the superior version of the film. Just adding anything else just feels superfluous. As if the music and the witticisms were not good enough. The romance in this film, it is stunning. It is everything I want in life. It is just an amazing slow burn. Actually, can it be considered a slow burn if it just takes the course of a 2-hour film? Is that just a burn at that point? I don't know anymore. They are so just naturally fond of each other. The little things that they do with each other, just the little faces, the little voices.
Get out, what'd you say? I don't know.
He pulls out her chair. And he takes care of her when she's sick on the plane, and he tucks her in, and then poetry, absolute cinematic poetry. After Faye breaks up with Jimmy, and she's going through her makeup box, and she sees the picture of the three of them, she takes those scissors, and she cuts Jimmy out of the picture. But who is left with her in the picture? Who has been there the whole time? And then they use the picture in the Where Are They Now segment. It's so good. It's so good. And lest I forget, when was the last time you were decently kissed? I have no words. I have no words. I recently just realized that this film is kind of just full of static characters. And I'm not mad. But listen, because I don't think with what it's going for that it's really even necessary for all of the characters, or even just the main character, to kind of go on this path of change necessarily. Because it is going for that like fake biopic thing that I talked about earlier. Because it's not trying to do like a good versus evil thing. It's not trying to show how any of the characters learn a lesson. It's just literally, hey, here is a fake historical story that we are presenting as if it happened, and we are making a theatrically inspired version of it. Here's all the weird crap that happened. Enjoy and see how weird it was. Because, for example, Jimmy, who is the closest thing that we have to a true antagonist in this movie, even though he doesn't necessarily oppose Guy specifically, he is a jerk, and I guarantee that no one who watches the film likes him. And pardon my French, he shows his ass quite a bit. And yet, he doesn't have an unhappy ending. He goes on to find another band, and they find success, and then he becomes a record producer. By the most basic of measures, he is winning at life at the end of this film. And Guy, honestly, is one of the most delightful static characters that I have ever met. As I was writing my notes earlier, I tried to justify to myself that no, he must be dynamic in some way. He must go through some kind of change, after all that. But really, he is just so himself the whole film. And that is why he succeeds, because he is so true to himself. Speaking of all the things that I love about Guy Patterson, he never questions if he is the right guy for the job. Because he is initially pulled in as the replacement drummer, I feel like if somebody tried to make this film today, there would at least be some kind of small side plot. Either that Guy felt guilty because he was taking Chad's place, or that Chad felt like he was kind of being pushed out of the band because they only got really popular after he was replaced. But that is not what happens at all. Pretty much immediately after the talent show, Guy kind of naturally assumes his position not only as a member of the band, but kind of like the de facto leader of the group. Not only was he the one who made That Thing You Do into a hit song, but he is the one who suggests they move forward and make a record.
A record.
He is the one who Phil decides to introduce to Mr. White before any of the other members. Meanwhile, Chad, happily watching the Hollywood Television Showcase with Guy's parents, clearly not holding any ill will at all, and just enjoying the fact that he knows the people who are going to be on TV. And it all comes back to that thing of Guy is truly what makes the wonders. He is the X factor.
None of this would have happened if you hadn't joined the band. I mean that in a good way.
Oh yeah, while we're artsy-fartsy here, the color story of this film is also amazing. If you haven't noticed, everything in Erie is kind of very, I don't even want to call it pastel. It's just very dowdy and samey, especially at the talent show. If you will notice, everyone at that talent show is wearing either black or powder blue. It's actually a lot of powder blue, and it's a very dull blue, and everything is just kind of like the most colorful sepia tone that you can imagine. That's the only way I can explain it. And then once they join Playtone and they start doing the State Fair tour, you still got the blue going on in what is now a blue-green color scheme, but the tones are so much richer, they're more vibrant, and with the audiences and with the new suits, you start to see more color being introduced into their lives, and the whole picture of the film gets way more vibrant. And then when we get to Hollywood, when we get to the Hollywood Television Showcase and that giant The Wonders with the circles and ovals pop stage thing going on, and it's just so bright and in your face like Hollywood. Just every choice that was made in this film is Guy's family is adorable, and I love that even though Guy is clearly very not in his element working for his dad's appliance store, and he would just rather be anywhere else. Even with all of that, he does not resent his family. Even when Jimmy and Lenny first come to him and say, hey, we need a drummer, his response is, okay, I will play in your band if you help out my parents and buy some of this merchandise.
It's $14.95 on sale.
And when the song gets on the radio, his mom is freaking out with her friend on the phone, like, yes, we're listening to it right now. Yeah. And then, once again, everything comes back to the Hollywood Television Showcase. The Pattersons and Chad watching the showcase together and just absolutely freaking out at Guy being on TV. And even Guy's dad, who told him to go bang on his bongo drums, he's there screaming his head off with everybody else. And then he puts sunglasses on and imitates his son.
I'm doing the thing for you, babe.
And there was something else that I noted, like bookends to the film. I can't remember. Oh, right. Because Guy starts the film jamming along to his record of Del Paxton, and then he ends the film jamming in person with Del Paxton. Poetry. This whole film is poetry. As I've discussed, it's poetry that doesn't really mean much, but it's poetry nonetheless, and I love it. Babyface Charlize Theron. She's there. How many other films can say the same? You can say you have adult Charlize Theron, who looks like that she's about to kill everybody with her bare hands, but how many films can say that you have babyface Charlize Theron, who plays second fiddle to Liv Tyler? Oh, yes. Faye and Mr. White are the cutest best friends I've ever seen in my goddamn life. First of all, dare I say it, Mr. White is one of the greatest Tom Hanks characters of all time because he's got such this quick, whip-smart energy. Like, he has been around the block a few times. He has been in this business long enough to know exactly what he is talking about, and he is firm in what he wants and what will take these guys far, but he is not mean.
And you, simplify.
He'll yell at you, he will get annoyed at you, but he is not mean. Case in point, his friendship with Faye, who you think he is going to start out absolutely hating because of the whole "you want her on tour, she's your costume mistress" exchange. But he is so sweet to Faye the whole time, and he really doesn't need to be. That first state fair in Columbus where they're backstage and he's like, come here, let's watch them together. And that whole conversation that they have at that party at the bar where they're talking about her and Jimmy. And then when they're on TV, he arranges for her to get all dolled up. And as I said, he really does not need to be this nice to her because for all intents and purposes, her role as costume mistress is very, very small. Like, she does not do much. She combs hair and she finds sunglasses. That's basically her job on this tour. And not only is he incredibly sweet to her, but he can tell from a country mile away that she and Guy belong together. And he is doing so much to push these two idiots together. Like, one of my favorite transitions of this film is, again, when they're at that bar and they're talking about her and Jimmy, and she's explaining how Tina and Guy are not an item anymore because she fell in love with her dentist. And Mr. White says,
Well, that's too bad.
and then instant cut to Mr. White and Faye trying on new sunglasses with Guy, which is definitely not a 3-person operation. And also just Faye's dressing room speech. That's it.
Shame on me for kissing you with my eyes closed so tight.
I can talk over this film for days and I can riff on it and quote along with it, but I do not make a peep during that dressing room speech. And I do not allow anyone else to make a peep during that dressing room speech. It's sacred. Oh yes, to add to that whole biopic theme that I keep coming back to, there is just the right amount of glamorization in this film. You are always seeing just as much behind the scenes and like what is making everything operational as you are seeing what is on stage and what the audience is seeing. Again, the television showcase in particular, I love so much from a filmmaking standpoint. Like, you have a lot of these shots where the feed will be shown in like the lower corner of the screen, and then the rest of it will kind of just be like just a little bit out of focus, but you'll see like all of the cameras and the dollies and the microphones and everything. Nothing is ever quite the perfect center focus of the shot. It always feels just a little bit kind of fly on the wall. And also, even though this is one of those two rare points that I mentioned before where the song is being played in full, it is constantly being interrupted and intercut with not only scenes from home from the Pattersons, but also with behind the scenes chatter from the producers who are like directing the shots, and you are watching the orchestration of Hollywood happen. Hello there, it's Emily from the editing room, and it has occurred to me that this video does not have nearly enough Lenny Hayes appreciation, and I'm here to quickly remedy that. Lenny is truly the heart of this film, and If you are laughing at this film, 9 times out of 10, it is because of something Lenny said or did. So we're just going to have another quick compilation of some of my favorite Lenny moments before I close this out.
Know what that is?
Presidential flashcards? Pittsburgh? Steubenville? Oh, I'm not here with these fellas. I got a pig in competition over at the livestock pavilion, and I am gonna win that blue ribbon. Please climb on top of your You got any threes? Thank you, Illinois! The land of Lincoln! There was this one time when we stayed up way past midnight. Well, I like Wisconsin.
So with any luck, I think I've said all I came to say. You know, like I said, this film is home to me. Like, I don't know how long I just rambled about it, but it's just nuts that we're at this point, you know? I know I said, you know, this film is as old as me, but it just kind of feels timeless. And, you know, because we are at this milestone, I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to just thank each and every person who touched this film, and as Guy Patterson did, just being themselves and creating what needed to be created, just came together and made an amazing film that I love with my whole entire heart. It brings me so much joy, and I'm just so grateful. Okay, it's late and I'm starving. I'm gonna go now. Bye. I love you. Yes, I am back on the webcam, at least for the moment, because this is a new microphone and I do not have the mental energy to deal with more than one audio track right now. Okay, that looks weird. Mr. White is one of the greatest Tom Hanks characters of all time, and the fact that he is not consistently up there with, like, Forrest Gump and, crap, who else has he played? Oh, my street cred is slowly slipping away.